Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Easy English StoryLab. Have you ever dreamed about going somewhere far away to start a new chapter? Have you ever packed your bag, looked at your city one last time, and felt both excited and scared at the same time? Today's story is about a young woman who went to California thinking it would change her life. But she did not expect what really happened there. This is a Shadowing English story for B1 learners. Listen carefully. Pause the video. Repeat after me. Copy the pronunciation, the rhythm, and the emotions. Now let's begin. My name is Emma. I am 24 years old. I grew up in a small town in Ohio. My life there was simple and quiet. I worked in a local bookstore near the main street. The store was small but cozy. I knew almost every customer by name. Every morning, I opened the door, turned on the lights, and arranged the books on the shelves. My days always followed the same routine. Wake up, make coffee, drive to work, smile at customers, close the store, go home, sleep. At first, I liked this life. It felt safe. It felt predictable. But after a few years, something inside me started to change. I began to feel restless. Every time I saw someone traveling or moving to a new city, I felt a strange pain in my chest. It was not jealousy. It was longing. One cold evening, I was lying on my bed, scrolling through social media. I saw photos of California, golden beaches, palm trees moving slowly in the wind, blue skies with no clouds, people smiling in sunglasses, the bright city lights of Los Angeles at night. Everything looked alive and full of energy. I looked outside my window. It was dark. The street was empty. The sky was gray. I suddenly asked myself, is this really my life? That question stayed in my mind for days. At work, I caught myself staring out of the window. I imagined myself walking on the beach instead of standing behind a counter. I imagined warm air instead of cold wind. 1 week later, I did something that scared me. I bought a one-way plane ticket to Los Angeles. My hands were shaking when I pressed the confirm button. It felt crazy. It felt irresponsible. But it also felt exciting. When I told my parents, they looked surprised. "California?" my mother repeated slowly. "That's very far," my father said. "You don't know anyone there." "I know," I answered, "but I need to try something different. I feel like I'm not growing here." They were worried, but they also understood. They knew I had been unhappy for a long time. The night before my flight, I packed my suitcase. I did not have many things. Some clothes, my laptop, a few books, a notebook where I wrote my thoughts. I walked around my room one last time. Everything looked familiar, safe, comfortable. For a moment, I wanted to cancel everything. What if I fail? What if I cannot find a job? What if I come back in 2 months with no money? But another voice inside me said, "What if this is the best decision of your life?" At the airport, I hugged my parents tightly. "Call us every day," my mother said. "I will," I promised. When the plane took off, I felt tears in my eyes. My small town became smaller and smaller below the clouds. I realized that I was leaving everything I knew. 4 hours later, I landed in Los Angeles. The first thing I felt when I stepped outside the airport was the warm air. It touched my skin like a soft blanket. The sun was bright. The sky was clear blue. Everything felt bigger, louder, faster. Cars moved quickly. People spoke loudly. Music was playing somewhere in the distance. I took a taxi to the small apartment I rented online. It was in a busy neighborhood. The building was old. The walls were thin. I could hear traffic and voices from the street. The apartment was not perfect. The kitchen was small. The paint on the walls was a little damaged. But I did not care. I was in California. The next morning, I woke up early because of the sunlight. It was so bright that it filled the whole room. I decided to walk to the beach. When I finally saw the ocean, I stopped walking. It was huge, endless, powerful. The waves were moving slowly, then crashing loudly against the shore. The water was shining under the sun. Surfers were waiting for the perfect wave. People were running, laughing, and taking photos. I took off my shoes and walked on the sand. It was warm under my feet. For the first time in years, I felt free. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Maybe this is where I belong, I thought. But after a few days, reality began to show its face. California was expensive, very expensive. My savings started to disappear quickly. Rent was high, food was expensive. Even coffee cost more than I expected. I began to feel nervous. I applied for many jobs every day: coffee shops, clothing stores, restaurants, offices, marketing companies. I sent emails, I filled out forms. I waited. But nobody called. Each day, my confidence became smaller. One afternoon, I was sitting alone on a bench near the beach. The sun was still shining, but I did not feel happy anymore. I watched people walking confidently with shopping bags and sunglasses. They looked successful and sure of themselves. I felt invisible. Was I foolish to come here? Was I chasing a dream that was not meant for me? That evening, I called my mother. "How are you, sweetheart?" she asked. "I'm fine," I said quickly, but she could hear something in my voice. "Are you really fine?" she asked softly. I looked out at the ocean through my window. "I don't know," I whispered. That night, I could not sleep. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the sounds of traffic outside. California was beautiful, but beauty does not pay rent. For the first time since I arrived, I thought about going back home. Maybe my small town was not so bad. Maybe safety is better than risk. But just when I was about to lose hope, my phone rang. "Hello, is this Emma?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes," I answered quickly, my heart beating fast. "This is from a small marketing company in Santa Monica. We reviewed your application. We would like to invite you for an interview tomorrow." I sat up in my bed. "Yes, of course. I will be there," I said. After the call ended, I held my phone tightly. Maybe California was testing me. Maybe it wanted to see if I would give up. And maybe my real journey was just beginning. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My interview was at 10 a.m. in Santa Monica. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. I wore a simple black blazer, blue jeans, and clean white shoes. I wanted to look professional but natural. My hands were cold. This is important, I told myself. This could change everything. The office was near the beach. It was in a modern glass building with big windows. When I walked inside, I felt small again. The lobby was quiet and elegant. A woman at the front desk smiled at me. "Interview?" she asked. "Yes, Emma Williams," I answered. She told me to sit and wait. While I was waiting, I looked around. Other people were walking confidently through the building. They looked experienced, successful, calm. I tried to breathe slowly. "You deserve to be here," I told myself. After 10 minutes, a woman came to meet me. She looked about 35 years old. She had long brown hair and a serious but kind face. Hi, Emma, I'm Rachel, she said, shaking my hand. We walked into a small meeting room. She asked me questions about my experience at the bookstore, about marketing, about teamwork. I answered honestly. I spoke clearly. I tried to show confidence. At one point, she asked, "Why did you move to California?" I paused for a second. "Because I felt stuck," I said. I needed to grow. I wanted to challenge myself. She nodded slowly. "That's brave," she said. The interview lasted about 40 minutes. When it ended, she smiled and said, "We will call you in a few days." That sentence felt both hopeful and dangerous. In a few days. That meant waiting. And waiting meant thinking. When I left the building, I walked straight to the beach. I needed air. I needed space. The ocean was calm that day. The waves were softer. I sat on the sand and watched the water. I replayed the interview in my head. Did I speak too fast? Did I say something wrong? Was I confident enough? For the next 3 days, I checked my phone every hour. Nothing. On the fourth day, I received an email. My heart started racing before I even opened it. "Dear Emma, thank you for your time." I stopped reading for a second. That sentence did not sound good. "We have decided to move forward with another candidate." I felt the air leave my lungs. I read the email again. It was polite. It was professional. But it was still a no. I closed my laptop slowly. For a few minutes, I just sat there in silence. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Instead, I felt empty. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe California was not for me. That evening, I walked alone through the city. The streets were full of people. Music was playing from restaurants. Couples were laughing. Friends were taking selfies. Everything looked alive. But inside, I felt lost. I sat on a bench and stared at the ground. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe I should go home. I imagined returning to my small town, working again in the bookstore, living the same life. It felt safe, but it also felt heavy. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello?" I answered carefully. "Hi, Emma. This is Rachel from the marketing company." My heart started beating again. "Yes," I said, trying to sound calm. "I know you received our email," she continued, "but I wanted to call you personally." I held my breath. We chose someone with more experience," she said. "However, I was impressed by your honesty and your courage to move here." I stayed silent, listening carefully. "We have a smaller position available," she added. "It's not as high as the one you applied for. The salary is lower, but it's a starting point. If you're willing to work hard, there's room to grow." For a second, I didn't know what to say. A smaller job, lower salary, but a chance. "Yes," I said quickly. "Yes, I'm interested." She laughed softly. "Good, come in on Monday." When the call ended, I felt something change inside me. It wasn't a big victory. It wasn't the dream position. But it was a door. And doors are important. That night, I walked to the beach again. The sky was orange and pink. The ocean reflected the sunset like a mirror. I realized something important. California was not going to give me success easily. It was going to test me. It was going to push me. It was going to ask, "How badly do you want this?" And for the first time since I arrived, I knew the answer. I wanted it badly. Not because of the palm trees, not because of social media photos, but because I wanted to prove something to myself. On Monday morning, I woke up early again. This time, my hands were not shaking. This time, I felt ready. Not ready for success, but ready for the process. And maybe that was even more important. On Monday morning, I walked into the office again. This time, I was not there for an interview. I was there to start. The position was small. I was not a manager. I was not in charge of big projects. I was simply an assistant in the marketing team. My job was to answer emails, organize files, and help with simple tasks. It was not glamorous. It was not the California dream I imagined, but it was real. The first week was difficult. Everything was new. The systems were different. The people spoke quickly. Sometimes I did not understand everything in meetings. I felt embarrassed when I had to ask someone to repeat something. At night, I came home tired. My brain felt heavy. My feet hurt from walking all day. There were moments when I thought, this is too hard, but I did not quit. Every morning, I reminded myself why I came. Not for comfort, not for easy success, but for growth. Slowly, things began to change. I started understanding more during meetings. I learned how to use the company software. I asked questions. I listened carefully. I stayed a little longer after work to improve my skills. One afternoon, Rachel called me into her office. My heart jumped for a second. Did I do something wrong? She looked at me and smiled. I've noticed something, she said. I waited quietly. You don't complain. You ask questions. You try again when you make mistakes. That's rare. I felt my face become warm. Thank you, I said softly. She leaned back in her chair. We have a small project next week. I want you to help lead it. Lead it? Me? I'm not sure if I'm ready, I admitted. She looked at me seriously. You're more ready than you think. That week, I worked harder than ever before. I prepared presentations. I practiced speaking clearly. I checked every detail twice. When the day of the presentation came, I stood in front of the team. My hands were slightly shaking, but I remembered something. If I could move across the country alone, if I could survive rejection, if I could start from zero, then I could do this. I took a deep breath and began speaking. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then people started nodding. Rachel smiled. Good job, Emma, she said. That night, I walked to the beach again. The ocean looked the same as the first day I saw it. Big, powerful, endless. But I felt different. When I first arrived in California, I thought the city would change me. I thought the sunshine and the palm trees would magically make me confident and successful. But that was not true. California did not change me. The challenges changed me. The fear changed me. The moments when I wanted to give up but didn't, those changed me. A few months later, I visited my hometown for the first time since I left. Everything looked smaller, the streets, the bookstore, even my old bedroom. But I did not feel stuck anymore. My parents noticed it too. You look different, my mother said. Different how? I asked. Stronger, she answered. And she was right. I was not stronger because I moved to California. I was stronger because I faced uncertainty and stayed, because I failed and continued, because I chose growth over comfort. When I returned to Los Angeles, the city felt less scary. It felt like home, not because it was perfect, but because I had earned my place there. One evening, as I watched the sun set over the ocean, I understood something important. The California dream is not about beaches or success. It is about courage. It is about starting before you feel ready. It is about building confidence step by step. If I had stayed in my small town, I would always wonder, what if? Now I don't wonder. Now I know. Sometimes the biggest risk is not moving, it is staying the same. And that is the real lesson of my journey. Now it's your turn. Listen to the story again. Pause after each sentence. Repeat it out loud. Copy the pronunciation, the rhythm, and the emotion. This is the shadowing technique. And this is how your English becomes natural and confident. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video. Subscribe to Easy English Story Lab and write in the comments. What city would you move to if you had the courage? Keep practicing every day. Consistency creates fluency. See you in the next story.